I want to take a hiatus from college.
What?
Go ahead, Auntie.
You gonna do what?
Dad, I really want to travel the world and figure out what I want to do.
Jazmine, you are not dropping out. You're gonna finish what you started, and this feeling will pass. Professor, you're gonna have to excuse my daughter. She's tripping.
Oh, no, it's okay. I actually agree with Jazmine.
Wait, you agree?
All right, House of Payne fans, BET just dropped a clip from tomorrow night's episode, Just Plain Trippin'. And the synopsis was about the family having a problem with Jazmine's newfound independence. And in the clip, we pretty much know the independence comes into play from Jazmine wanting to take a hiatus from college. And since the clip is over a minute long, obviously due to copyright I can't play the entire thing. What I'll do is right now I'm going to insert the audio, and then once the entire audio has played from the clip so you get the context, I'm going to come back, give my thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Please, everyone, bow your heads for grace.
I want to take a hiatus from college.
What?
Go ahead, Auntie.
You gonna do what?
Dad, I really want to travel the world and figure out what I want to do.
Jazmine, you are not dropping out. You're gonna finish what you started, and this feeling will pass. Professor, you're gonna have to excuse my daughter. She's tripping.
Oh, no, it's okay. I actually agree with Jazmine.
Wait, you agree? You are supposed to be encouraging her to stay the course.
Malik, can you talk to me, Ro, please?
Look, I encourage my students to follow their intuition. Life is about self-discovery. If she feels that she needs to step away and find out what she really wants, I support it. College isn't a guaranteed success.
As her father, I'm telling her that college is necessary, and I don't appreciate her professor encouraging her to drop out.
Look, success is relative. Jazmine is one of my brightest students, and I encourage all of my students to be well-rounded thinkers.
Right, I just don't see the point of wasting time and money when I haven't even figured out what I want to do with my life yet, you know?
I thought you wanted to be a psychologist.
Well, I do love helping people with their problems, especially when it comes to mental health, but I also love photography, Dad. It brings me joy.
Listen, I respect it. You're young.
So this is a very interesting topic of discussion. I think I remember assisted living. Maybe it was season 2, but I know it was when Philip, it was discovered that he has a knack for being a fixer-upper in terms of, or a handyman kind of person, where he was able to just kill it when it came to repairs around the assisted living facility. If I remember the episode correctly, the whole premise was that he was falling behind on his schoolwork or not really showing interest in school. So in order to teach him a lesson, his punishment was like a list of various things around the facility that need to be fixed. And he was able to just do it in no time. And he even found time to do things like fix stuff for Mr. Brown and, you know, make birdhouses and whatnot, pretty much showing that he was a bit of a craftsman. And then as the episode went on, his parents started freaking out because he wasn't, quote, in their eyes, not learning a lesson. And that's the one thing about assisted living that I really don't like sometimes, where more often than not, Leah and Jeremy, they're more so about pushing their own agendas on their children as opposed to hearing them out. Like, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes their kids are just, you know, out of pocket for when they do certain things, but it's almost like if the assisted living people weren't around, like the residents or Brown or Cora or even Grandpa Vinny, the kids would just be, you know, burdened with so much pressure from their parents, because more often than not, their parents are screaming at them the entire episode, "You're going to do this because I'm your parent and I told you to, and we expect this from you." But it's not until, you know, let's say Miss Anastasia or Reginald, you know, chimes in with some words of wisdom, or Cora or, you know, Brown or whoever talks with the parents, they maybe lighten up. But this was one episode that stood out to me because at the end, I don't think they did lighten up. See, they looked down at the idea of Philip not going to college, but college isn't for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with going to a trade school, because unlike so many other careers, that's something that won't be, out of style, so to speak, anytime soon. There's always going to be a need for craftsmen, those plumbers, those who are in construction, and this, that, and the third. So when we look at House of Payne, what we have here is something a bit different. It isn't necessarily that Jazmine doesn't want to go to school or finish school because she has she is good with her hands and fixing things and whatnot, like Philip. But I think this is a very important conversation that needs to be had between children and their parental figures, or pretty much the people who are supporting them while they're in school. Basically, let's be honest here, the people who are footing the bill for their children, or, let's say if you're being raised by your aunt, grandparent, whoever, basically the person who's supporting you financially while you're in school. I wholeheartedly agree with Jazmine in the idea, and this is coming from someone who went to college, who has student loan debt and whatnot. There is really no point in going to school if you do not know what you want to do. Granted, there are many cases where you find yourself along the way. While you're in school, you might change your majors. You might get an internship, or you might have a professor with former experience in a specific field. They, share their experience with you, and that might inspire you to do, something else. But the thing is, it really depends on what Jazmine wants to do with that hiatus. Now, don't get me wrong, from CJ's perspective, and I don't think Janine's in the episode, but I understand the idea. Like, look, your mother and I, we spent such and such amount of money so far in your education. So what are you going to do? And in situations like this, I think more often than not, there at least should be some sort of middle ground. For example, Jazmine mentions that she loves to do photography. It's something that makes her happy. Why not? I don't know if her school offers. I don't even know the name of the college she goes to, but why not be a compromise of, okay, you said you wanted to be a psychologist. Yeah, I love helping people with their problems, but, photography makes me happy. Well, Jazmine, how about this? Why don't you maintain your major in psychology, but, do a minor in photography, take a couple of classes, because passions can change at the drop of a hat. And that's one thing it's hard to do. It's like, to pursue a passion versus something that's going to be financially fulfilling and stable. Like, keep in mind, I live in a very, very, back of the woods kind of, I don't even call it a town, but like a neighborhood. Like, there are literally more animal neighbors than actual neighbors around here. I grew up on dial-up. I didn't know high-speed internet until I went to Liberty in 2010. And then I, paid a couple $1,000s to get HughesNet to install a dish and everything down here on the property. This was before HughesNet was available almost everywhere, because back then the people had to come from West Virginia just to install the stuff. Now, I never in my life thought that YouTube was an option for me. Since we had dial-up, I could never really watch it. Heck, even when I went in, I was in high school, when I would go to the library or computer lab or whatnot, in school, there are so many restrictions on, oh, well, if you're watching YouTube, you can't be watching, anime or, meme videos and whatnot. You got to be doing some education or some bull crap like that. So, yeah, it was never in the cards for me, and yet here I am. But there's also the idea of parents also needing to be more lenient in terms of understanding, like the job market and whatnot today is nowhere near anything the same of what it was back in the day. Heck, even for me, look, I graduated in 2009. And this is a conversation that always comes up. I see it on social media, specifically Facebook, because when I say Facebook, I want to talk about the people that I know from the past and, their thoughts on things in some situations. Like whenever there's like a student loan forgiveness discussion or a law being passed or whatever, and people have something to say about it. It's one of those situations where in 2009, when I graduated, it was kind of looked down upon When you're a grad, I don't know if your school did this in high school, but when you got your diploma, the announcer would say, Timothy Brandon, he's going to such and such a college. But if you weren't going to college, they would say like, hey, Tiffany Parker, workforce. Basically meaning that, hey, this person isn't going to college. They're going right into the workforce. It was looked down upon if you weren't going to some sort of school. Because back during that time, when I was going through school, and like elementary, middle school, high school, it was like, okay, hey, you go to school, you get good grades, and then you go into a college and you get good grades, and then after that you find a good job and you work, get a house, start a family, have kids, and then they go to school to get good grades. I'm pretty sure Linus said that in the Charlie Brown special, because I'm verbatim talking like he was. I forgot. I think it was There's No Time for Love, Charlie Brown, or something like that. I love those Peanuts specials. But yeah, I know he said the exact same thing. But the thing about it is, as I was going through college, the cards that were being dealt to my generation shifted, where the job market was crap. Our parents, they could like quit a job. Cause my mom, I remember she like quit her job and then had a new one a few days later. It's like she went into an interview and she started work the following week. Nowadays, and I'm talking pre-minimum wage for flipping burgers being boosted to like $15, $16, however much it is. Get out of college, crap ton of debt. But then the most damning part, oh, well, you can't get this job in your field because you don't have enough experience, or we're looking for someone like 5 years in this field or this. So here we are. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I've seen situations like this where I would interact with people, or I would know people from my past, where they would have a degree or degrees and they were working the same job as someone who went into the workforce right after they graduated from high school. Basically, being pressured into going to school in order to get that degree, in order to seal your future, only to realize that, damn, I was better off just working right out of school because I wouldn't have had all the debt I have now. So for me, when it comes to this professor that Jazmine's talking with, he's very open-minded to his students, being open-minded, well-rounded. And school isn't for everyone, and that is a fact. It isn't even that school isn't for everyone. It's just that school doesn't always pan out the way people plan it to be. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to school, I'm going to pick this major. A lot of people don't actually pursue careers in the major that they study. It's just that more often than not, that is like, look, I've come this far into my education, and I got to come out of it with something, so let me go ahead and finish this degree, but then I will decide to pursue something else, or something that really isn't talked about, but it should be. You pursue a degree, and sometimes that career field isn't exactly what you thought. I mean, sure, you can get an internship or, this or that, but until you're out there in the field, you honestly don't know what the entire scenario is. But like I said, unless you get like a internship in advance, or somebody in the field that can talk you through it, because thankfully I switched from computer science, and don't get me wrong, looking at the figures and all, the money was good, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. It just felt like, okay, I'm going to be behind my desk crunching numbers the rest of my life. So then I changed to communications, and I got a bunch of religious degrees as well. And part of me, I didn't need to go to grad school, but I want to keep it completely, I want to be completely honest with you. I was afraid to go into the real world. That was one reason I pursued grad school, because I had a crap ton of college credit from high school. So I went into college as like technically a junior. And it only took a couple of years to get that communications degree. And then I got an associate's and a minor in religion. But then I went to grad school, did seminary stuff for like 3 years. And I walked out of there with 2 masters and 5 graduate certificates. But the thing is, yeah, I was just afraid of the real world. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know like where to work. and you graduate and your parents just like push you. That's the one thing I wish parents would understand. It's just that you got to give me a little time. Like, I'm not going to sit on my ass. And that was the worst part. Like, I would apply for job after job after job, and every day you hear anything and hear that. Like, no, I didn't. And then the worst part is when they take it into their own hands to find you a job, and it's nothing like anything you've studied for. Because, yeah, I was 3 years in that call center at Liberty. My mom actually tried to give me a call center job in this area, but then I wound up back in Lynchburg. And then from there, I eventually did the YouTube. And, yeah, my parents didn't want me to quit my job to pursue YouTube, but I did it anyway. I was like Jazmine. I was like, look, I spent 3 years at this place. I busted my ass. I made them a crap ton of money. I'm being paid nickels and pennies, and I need to try this out. I'm not asking you for any financial support. I know that based on the couple of months I've been paid for YouTube, I can at bare minimum pay my rent, pay my bills, and this, that, and the third. And if it doesn't work, then I'll just find something else. And here we are over 5 years later, and this should work. But making more money than both of them and everybody combined in the house. But that's because I went out, I took that leap of faith. I could have still been at that call center. I could have been, doing another desk job. But I said, there really isn't any forward movement, or there isn't anywhere for me to go in this company, because at the end of the day, I'm fueling someone else's dream. So I'm with Jazmine. I definitely agree with Jazmine in the fact that there's no point in me being in school if I'm not sure of what I want to do. I'm just wasting time and money. And then on top of that, unlike Malik, she ain't got no baby to raise. Like, Malik, there's the debate of, wow, yeah, I'm in school, but I'm working too. Malik could have the situation going on where it's like, well, Dad, look, I know college is important and whatnot, but right now I need to make money, so I can get Lisa and me and the baby out of the house and, do this and that. So he has more of a, okay, I can see him leaving school because of life circumstances, but he's pushing through by working and going to school. And in last season, I think Lisa mentioned going to school for something, but I don't think we ever got follow up on that. But I really just want to talk about the fact that I love the idea of this show tackling such a very relevant, real life situation for a lot of, America today. But I do hope it's handled with care. Like, I can understand, like the family being like, oh, no, you ain't leaving school. But I do hope they at least hear Jazmine out. Because on the one hand, like, what's her plan? I get it, though. She's young. She doesn't have to have life figured out right away. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you're taking a hiatus from school, are you going to get a job? Or how are you going to make a living? You're not just going to sit around and do nothing. Now, that I can understand as well. But, maybe there should be a sort of compromise where it's like, hey, Dad, instead of, I'm going to take a hiatus from school, but let it be like a few months. Let me just kind of dip my toe in the water. Let me just interview people in different fields that I'm passionate about. And, maybe I can get a little experience from them, or at least, know firsthand what it's like. And then from there, I can pick something and go back to school. But I think and this is really I'm conflicted on if I should say this or not, because nowadays, like the job market is just so different from when I went to school. But, it wouldn't be a bad idea to finish your degree just because you can have something to fall back on. Because sometimes that passion doesn't really pay the bills. Like for me, luckily, I get paid to review television shows. And heck, even today, Pokemon cards, something I did as a hobby. I got over 800 listed on eBay. Didn't I mention that in a previous video? I'm pretty sure I did. My House of Payne review from last week. I listed even more than I did the week before. I got over 800 cards that are ending literally as we speak, or as I speak, reviewing, doing this video. Over $5,000 in that, and that's before eBay fees and shipping costs. But regardless, I never thought I could do this and, earn money and whatnot. But I think that you got to pay your dues. Sometimes and that's one thing I always tell people, especially like, my nephew, he says, hey, I got some friends in school, and I tell them you do YouTube, and they had questions like, this, that, and the third. I remember going to a career day at a school in Lynchburg before. But Honestly, I didn't want to. I don't want to sound like I was an elitist or something like that, but I didn't want to work a regular job, like at a factory and whatnot, because it's like I'm getting these degrees, I'm working my butt off. Like, what is the point? I had this emotion of unfulfillment. Like, what's the point of me working some job that I could have done without a degree? That was my biggest attitude when my parents trying to push me to go to work after I graduated, because I was looking for work, but the problem was nobody was hiring, or I didn't have enough experience. And it's like, well, just go work somewhere. And it's like, but that defeats the purpose of all the money spent and that I'm in debt to, and all the years I spent in college, if I just work some regular job. But then I had to do it. And it got to the point where, okay, nobody is going to help me out in terms of my current situation. What I do next is up to me. So I decided to take that leap of faith, despite what people were saying, or mainly my parents. They were the only ones who were negative about it. I mean, hell, there were people at the job who were like, yo, you need to get up out of here. Like, you've broken all the records, and you've made this school a crap ton of money. We're barely being paid anything. You're better off doing solo. And here I am. And I think that at the core, I don't know how, and it hurts because we don't know how long she's been in college, or Malika. Like, we don't know the timeline of how far into her degree is she. It's like she may be a year away. I mean, if you're like a year away, you might as well finish, because like I said, you can at least do something. And also another thing to think about is, I know back in Liberty, there's something called the interdisciplinary studies degree. I always call that like the Build-A-Bear workshop of college degrees, because it wasn't just in one subject. You could literally say, hey, I want to take classes in like 6 different fields and put it into 1 degree, and the registrar's office would do their thing, fix it up, and then boom, you'll be good to go. You'll be able to graduate in like a couple of years and have a degree. So I really hope we explore Jazmine's plan, and if there's some sort of compromise, because yeah, it is not worth. I remember as a kid, are you going to college when you graduate someday? Yeah. All right, great. That's what I want to hear. Graduated school. We can't afford to send you to college, so I had to take out loans. I remember my nephew is like, I'm going to college too, and it's like, nah. Nowadays, like, no. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I tell him like, hey, EJ, I wouldn't recommend it unless you knew what you were going to do. Now, look, I don't want to. I mean, you could say, well, you said you didn't know what you wanted to do either. I studied communications though, because I had the gut feeling of computer science not being my passion, and with communications, as someone who grew up in church and whatnot, speaking. I learned a lot about advertising, public relation, and I was able to use that in my call center job. And I sure as hell use that in my career now on the internet, because those classes and whatnot taught me about social media. Nowadays, they have full-fledged social media classes, but back in the day, we would only spend like brief lessons on them. But yeah, I mean, my biggest recommendation is, don't start college unless you're absolutely sure you are pursuing a career field that requires a degree. And I mean, even getting something like an associate's degree is something that is reasonable, and if possible, get as many college credits in high school as you can, because I know some people who had like a semi associates or something like that when they graduated high school. And it was pretty much, like, hey, I have enough credits to like join the workforce right now because I have college credit. But yeah, I just hope that this episode handles this subject with care, because it is very relevant nowadays. It is very relevant. And it's sad that like my generation was like the last generation, or one of the last generations, to have to deal with student loan debt, with nowadays a bunch of colleges either offering free education, highly reduced education. And, I didn't come from a family that was able to just pave the way, or, I was and the reason I finished school so quickly and got so many degrees was because I wasn't working while I was doing school. And like, look, if I'm going to school, I'm going to do school. I think a few summers I would work, jobs here and there, but being my own boss now and whatnot. And personally, I don't regret college. Would I do some things differently? Yeah, but it was mainly due to my resources. Like I said, I didn't know much about YouTube because I didn't grow up with it because of dial-up. But we all have the story, man. If I only knew then what I knew now. But things played out the way they were supposed to. But yeah, I just hope that we don't get the "I'm your father and you're going to school." But at the same time, I hope that there is a compromise reached by the end of the episode, because college isn't for everyone. There's no need of putting yourself in crippling debt if you don't know what you're going to do. I think Everybody Hates Chris had this good episode too. I think when Chris Rock played like a school counselor to his younger self in the show, and that was something where I think Chris was like, yeah, I'll go to school and, I don't know, I'll just figure things out. It's like, you go to college when you know what you want to do. You just don't go to college to find yourself. I don't want to completely dismiss that statement, because some people do find themselves when they go to school. But then, for people who are like, yeah, my parents let me study abroad, or, and then I was able to get out there in the world, and, I was able to, take a semester off and, find myself. No, a lot of people like myself in black families where very few, I think maybe 2 people before me went to school. 2 people. My older cousin, he went to study to be a teacher. It took him like 6 years to do a bachelor's though. And then I know I had an aunt. I forgot what her degree was, but that was, years ago. I think I was like maybe the 3rd in the family to go to school. A record time, and I got a shit ton of degrees and whatnot. But yeah, I think in black families, there's way more pressure because of the fact that, hey, you know what, you got to make it, and you got to make money, you got to be successful and whatnot. We don't have the luxuries as, white or other privileged families. And I'm not saying every white family that sends their people to, their kids to school are well off, but you know what I mean? Like, in a lot of black families, we don't have the luxury of being able to take a year off. I mean, more often than not, when, and I know from the very few black students at Liberty that I interacted with, when we lived in the same dorm and whatnot, it was a situation where if you didn't come back to school, it was mainly due to finances, or, wow, your one of your parents passed away, or, they got injured or something, or they got cancer or whatever, so they can't work. So you have to be forced to quit your education and go back to work. So in terms of quitting school, there wasn't really, time to find yourself. It's like you need to just hit the ground running and work. And it's just like, man, that sucks, but that's life. Mainly to get I know I've been jabbering here, and I know when the full episode comes out, my review is going to be long, but sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do in order to get where you want to go. I think Ashton Kutcher, when he did like a Kids' Choice Award for Nickelodeon, he got an award for something, he talked about it, and he was like, back when I was working regular jobs like sweeping, a restaurant floor, or something like that, I was never bigger than the job I was doing, and I never quit my current job until I had another job lined up. And that's a good attitude to have. Like, YouTube was doing all right for me. What was it? Late summer, early fall of 2017, I was just getting monetized, but I did not quit my call center job until I was absolutely sure I was making enough money to do the bare minimum, pay my half of the rent, pay Wi-Fi, and have enough to eat, and have enough money to eat. And then after that, I'm like, I got enough money in my savings account to kind of buffer off for a few months in case things go south, and then I quit. But with Jazmine, like I said, a lot of things we really don't know yet. Maybe in the next episode, tomorrow we'll find out. But how far is she into her program? What's her plan of action? Will her parents give her maybe some time off? I know that on That 70s Show, Eric asked for like an time off. His dad said, you have 1 year, after you graduate high school to figure your life out. And then after that, you're kicked out. Like, that's it. But he did give his son 1 year to either find himself and whatnot. But it's just an interesting conversation. It really is. Because that student loan debt ain't nothing to play with. It really isn't. So thanks so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. And I really, 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 really can't wait until tomorrow night when this episode airs so we can discuss things further.